worked in a while. My whole body is trembling, and my whole name is trembling, and it's a long one. So, first of all, a couple of notes before I start this story time. Everything in this story is a work of fiction, and anything relating to any person, living or dead, is purely coincidental. I hope that everything I say stays here, and if you haven't seen The Devil Wears Prada, spoiler alert. No. I love my job. I love my job. I love my job. The immortal words of Emily Blunt resonated in my head. I love my job. I love my job. I love my job. I kept muttering, trying to convince myself that I did in fact love my job. I tried hard to justify me feeling like death warmed up while standing in front of the cash register, trying to function and perform with the energy equivalent to that of a healthy person. I looked like an elegant hobo. Pajama pants, dress shoes, the t-shirt I slept in last night, an oversized knitted sweater, not to mention the puffy eyes, the red nose, the unwashed face. I could barely keep my eyes open and everything hurt. I had never taken a sick day. I genuinely believed that if I always showed up, that if I put in the work, that if I gave everything that I got, I would be appreciated, rewarded, promoted. I am unhappily married to my job. My work is possessive, cruel, indifferent, always tells me what to do, how to act, what to say, and how to say it. He is the type of husband that tells me what to wear, when to arrive, and how long I should stay at his service, and exactly when I'm allowed to leave. He expects me to be at his beck and call, and if I don't perform to his exact standards, he punishes me. But he assures me this is for my own good. We've been together for more than 10 years. I think the only reason that I stay is because despite his many faults, he supports me financially. When I first started my job, I was young, eager, and full of hope. This was my first serious adult job. Officially, I was hired in August of 2010. I started out as a cashier/floor assistant to one of the most popular and fastest growing recycled fashion resale retailers in the US. Wink. I saw this as the technical version of what my actual dream job would be. I felt like Anne Hathaway in The Devil Wears Prada. I had such a thirst to prove myself, to show how valuable and talented I was. My boss, however, is not Meryl Streep. We'll call her Miranda. Miranda is the manager, the person in charge. If a walking cliche ever existed, it was her. She sees herself as the epitome of righteousness and correctness. Despite her short stature, she exudes confidence that her title of manager gives her. She talks with a lisp and would often end her sentences saying, "You know." She is paranoid, often offensive, and downright mean. In short, and not to reinforce negative stereotypes against women in positions of power, she's a bitch. When I first met Miranda, I thought that she was the best boss ever. She was chatty and casual in the way that she conducted herself. She would often tell us stories about her personal life, how wealthy her daughters are, and what she had for dinner last night. She often said that she saw her employees as her children, and that she cared of our well-being and of our future. And perhaps that is what made her seem so harmless. The fact that she had a certain aura of tenderness we don't often associate with the boss bitch type. In those few weeks, I heard all sorts of stories from my coworkers and customers about Miranda's toughness, rudeness, her self-serving bias. But as often the case is with stories like this, seeing is believing. As much as I wanted to believe that I was Anne Hathaway from The Devil Wears Prada, I had in fact turned into Dwight Schrute from The Office. I had sacrificed every aspect of who I was to worship at the temple of performative workaholism. I genuinely wanted to be one of those people that would get such a high from their work. I miss birthday parties, family get-togethers, my sister's graduation, because I was fully committed to the job. I wanted to be defined by my ability to manage, to lead, to come up with innovative ideas. I had hoarded every ounce of dignity. I had to become the company's kiss-ass. I wanted to feel control over something. Living in a small town, I felt that I had failed to solidify my future. So my work was everything I had left. I didn't want to just survive in it, I wanted to thrive in it. Eventually, I became assistant manager. That was the absolute worst year of my life. I was given the keys to the kingdom. I was the person in charge. It was my signature on the paperwork. I genuinely thought I was making a change for the better. However, every idea I had was met with contempt from Miranda. She felt I was stepping over the line. She described my management style, and I quote, "want to militarize the store." I admit it. More than once I went over her head, and I did what I believed to be the best thing to do. Every time the outcome was positive, the change that I imparted was welcome, but I was still reprimanded. Every time, Miranda would take credit for my ideas, and I knew this was not lost on her. Many times when I was on vacation or took time off, she would give me a laundry list of things that went wrong that day that may have been prevented had only I've been there. Many times that store had seen herself in hot water and was tightening around us the numbers in the red. Miranda gave us endless meetings and speeches about how we should not let the vanguard down. That is not a typo, she genuinely called it the vanguard. And yet, she refused to adapt and to change course, and we were only saved by the generosity of her customers, and not by a carefully crafted plan. March 16, 2020. The day we had to close the store due to the coronavirus outbreak. I was genuinely happy to be going home, to lock myself in my apartment without having to deal with the demands of my job. For the next 2 months, I remained in lockdown. It was in this isolation that I created 2 different pieces of art. I wrote a 20-page research paper on the golden age of Mexican cinema, and I grew this beard. I genuinely believe that this was the time I grew the most. I was introduced to a world in which I could fully dedicate to the things that made me happy. Despite my fears of the coronavirus, I was genuinely very happy, and I did not want to go back to normal. I got the call that the store was reopening that May. When I returned to work, I noticed that not only the world around me had changed, but I had changed as well. I felt as Kate Chopin described her heroine in The Story of an Hour after she learned of her husband's death. There was a feverish triumph in her eyes, and she carried herself unwittingly like a goddess of victory. I was not a goddess of victory. I was a glorified babysitter. Miranda, a closeted Trump supporter, did not take many of the safety regulations as serious as I did out of all the employees that came back. I was the one that followed instructions, safety protocols to exact specifications. Miranda teased me and made fun of me for the way I reprimanded everyone to don't try stuff on, to keep their mask on, to remain 6 feet apart. She said that I was exaggerating, being dramatic, being paranoid, but keep in mind that this was May of 2020. Who coughed? We didn't even have a vaccine. Customers began to complain about me, claiming that I was scolding them like children, and once again, I was reprimanded. If there was one thing that this pandemic put into perspective, is how I've literally been sacrificing my health for my job that would not think twice to replace me. You think of all those times I showed up looking like an elegant hobo, feeling like death warmed up, just so I wouldn't be marked as absent. All the times that I was exposed to people who were well aware that they were sick and still choose to treat themselves to a day of shopping. If I were to get sick right now, no one would bat an eye or lose their heads over me missing work. This is when I had an epiphany. I am so much better than this job. I am not being arrogant, it is a fact. The place where my voice had been constantly silenced, where my thoughts and ideas had been ridiculed, and where my boss had demonstrated again and again that she lacked all the ability to be a leader, have made me seem that I am meant to do so much more than to devote my time and energy to a story that has literally, figuratively, metaphorically tried to kill me. If it wasn't for my love of writing, for my love of art, constantly reminding and reassuring me that I have a talent for it, a literary voice and a myriad of talents, I might have ended up in a box. Thank you for coming. Any questions or comments?
It was amazing.
How long have you been an artist for?
You know, it's